Uh, let's briefly talk about the relationship between Esans and Benin. It's something I really don't want. I don't really want to do it too. Uh, it's something I really don't want to talk so much about because I don't want to. I don't like dwelling so much on issues that can be misrepresented out of or be quoted out of these historical contexts. All right, I like to keep it as um, I like situations where we can all open our minds, all right, to understand from different perspectives and views. So basically, it is a bit sensitive when I'm dealing with sensitive issues about Benin and Esans. I like to see the way they are, all right, without having to favor one ethnic group or one tribe over the other. All right. Okay, I think I'll talk about that maybe later. Ogida. I think I have a little bit history about Ogida and all that. No. Before, I don't know. Genosaige did something on the Esan. I don't know. I promised my viewers, my fans, for the past 2 weeks I was going to deal with that. I will not deal with denigrating any tribe. I don't. The perspective of the Genosaige is entirely different from what I would say publicly. I'll just tell you the truth, and I'm not denigrate anybody. I'm not interested in calling this one which calling this one. No. My platform is an educating program. The only people that tends to strike a chord on my names and I get very angry when I address them, but maybe most times I come out publicly to also say sorry to them, not because they deserve it or they are deserving of the sorry, but because I'm just that kind of a person who wants to use a platform for educating the people and not for controversies. If you see, there are a whole lot of people who have reported a whole lot of people misbehaving online to me, different, all of them, but I don't talk about them because I don't want my platform to be imbued with controversy. So I know there are a lot of controversial characters that comes online every day to talk about different topics for whatever different reasons, but my platform is a platform that where you come, you learn something very tangible, something you can pass on to your children, something you can pass on to people around you. So that's what my platform is for. So I want to talk about something controversial. Now, the relationship between Esans and Benins are it's like the relationship between brothers and sisters. It doesn't go beyond that. I'm very careful. I don't want to use the word relationship between a father and a son or a father and a child. That's not a relationship. The relationship is just I'll make you see it from this perspective. I like you people. Okay, so I like you people to see it from this perspective. I like you people to see it from this perspective. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of chronology of my father. I'm going to give a bit chronology of my father, of my family. My name is Izoduwa. My father's name is Amowie. My grandfather's name is Imasuen. My great-grandfather's name is Imasuen. Then my great-great-grandfather's name is Aluge. Assuming my great-great-grandfather, who is Aluge, left Benin for whatever reasons. It could be because there were family issues. It could be because he wanted to change location, wanted to change environment. It could be for whatever reasons. Probably he traveled to, let me just Germany. For example, he migrated for whatever reasons, because there was a war. Let's assume because of the Civil War or the British invasion. So he decided to travel out of Nigeria So there was where my great grandfather was given birth to. That is Imasuen. So my great grandfather was given birth to Imasuen. That was where my grandfather was given birth to Imasuen. And that was where my father was given birth to Amowie. And that was where I was given birth to. Alright? Now, it doesn't change the fact that I am a Benin person. It only shows that my parents at one point in history migrated. It's just like black Americans. They're Africans by ancestry. Alright? It doesn't change their ancestry. Yeah, they're black Americans. They are black Americans, but they're ancestrally Africans. Alright? And it's the same. My ancestors a long time ago, for whatever reasons, migrated to Germany, and they are not German nationals, but it doesn't change the fact that they are ancestrally Benin. Alright, but what is incorrect is when my lineage now have now spent about 150 years in Germany, and I decide to return home, and then I meet a Benin man. Then I'm no longer more like a typical Benin, because my intonation would have been changed. I might not be able to even hear Larry, Ade, or the basic Benin language. I might not be able to hear them because my great grandfather left about 150 years ago. But it doesn't change the fact that I am a Benin man, ancestrally Benin. Alright, so I eventually now come back home, and the people I meet home are not telling me that they are my father. Like that sort of a thing. Like even my age mates, like assuming I'm 30 and I'm not meeting like a 30 years old Benin person who probably stayed behind, whose ancestors didn't migrate, all right, because the environment was favorable for them to have stayed behind, all right, didn't migrate, and they not see me for the first time, and they are not ascribing me to say that a 30 years my own age mate is not telling me that, oh, we want him. That becomes a problem. I must remind that person that no, I'm not a child. We're age mates. We're brothers. And that's the point. Alright? Now, I don't want to dwell on controversies. Alright? Now, I'm not interested in this is what this said, this is what this said. My programs are usually not interested in all those side talks. Those are merely side talks. My program is only interested in the historical connections between the Esans and the Benin people. Brothers, related. Esans are ancestrally Benin. It's a one-way thing. Alright? Esans are ancestrally Benin people. Like the history. They are about two types of histories. The origins of the earliest Esans and the origins of the majority of the Esan people. Alright? Now there is, according to the works of Professor O.S.B. Omorie, he believed that they were already class of Esans. People existed in those areas, but there were very few of them. There were very, very few of them until a large stock of Benin people went to join them, quoted to be in the era of Obiawari the First, But like I said, I don't want to dwell on frivolities. I don't want to dwell on this is what this said. Like for example, what I'm making reference to. It's as I was growing up as a child. We grew up in a family where my mom keeps telling us that if you want to get married, don't marry an Asian woman. That's how I grew up, as a matter of fact. Yeah, it became part of me. I didn't know anything. I was just a child, an innocent child for that matter. I never really understood why. What was the reason? I still probably don't understand what could have been the reason. Then in 2017, I was already a budding historian. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to write a book about my community. That's my probably the only published work I've ever done. I have a book to my credit, the ancient town of Igbehwe, near Korean. I wrote that book. I completed that book. That book was launched December 30th, 2017 in my village. Now, when I was putting my data together, obviously that's when I found out that I'm not ancestrally from Igbehwe, that we are migrants for Yemen. We are princes of the kingdom. So my ancestors, my great grandfather Aluge, with his two younger brothers, left Yemen in search of their sister, who was at Umowu Nohua and all that. Umowu Nohua and all that in search, and they eventually got to Igbehwe and they got settled. That became the genesis of the Lamogo family in my community. Now, we also had Esan family. Now, the original owners of my community are Laiso family. Now, they also had Esan family. Because my mom, she's from Esan, I wanted also to get the family tree of my mom. That was when I started tracing. And I found out that the founder of the Esan family, his name is called Oboy. Alright? And he was a migrant from Ebili, present-day Esan land. So that means paternally, my mother, she's an Esan woman. And this was the same woman that said I shouldn't get married. None of his children should get married. It's a primordial sentiment. But most of these persons are saying it and one father, either having an Esan mother and Esan father. So it's a close relationship. So most times, these things are done out of ignorance. I'm just trying to say, until the day I had to tell my mom, like, yeah, are you aware you're an Esan woman? She was like, no. Oh yeah, my father used to tell me then that one of our ancestors came from Ebili. Yeah. It was shocking. It was a very fun day, actually. You understand? So please, I don't want distractions. So, but I'm just trying to tell you, these are sentiments that parents are put in the minds of children that are really not true. All right, one can't really tell the rivalry, but what I can say is the rivalry of brothers. I wouldn't say if I say it in publicly all the time, and you can quote me, you can take my words anywhere. I'm not that kind of a Benin person that have a supremacy ideology that most especially when it comes about Benin descendants. What I tell Esans every day is that no matter however you're going to look at it, Esans and Benin descendants, they are ancestrally Benin. They are not different from Owan people who are also ancestrally Benin, who probably comes and they are very proud of it. I think the only difference between other Benin descendants and Esan is a beef that every other Benin descendants agree to their Benin ancestry, other than modern day Esans, not even the old ones. Because if you walk the foremost Esan historian, Dr. C.J. Okoje, made it very clearly in his work, Esan laws and native. I'm forgetting the title of the book, but it's like Esan Native Laws and Custom. I think that's how it is. Esan Native Laws and Custom, written by Dr. C.J. Christopher Okoje, is a foremost Esan historian. All right, in his work. Sorry, I couldn't come with a book, but I just mentioned the title of the book. It's Esan Native Laws and Custom, written by Dr. Christopher Okoje. He's a foremost Esan historian. Now, I don't listen to these young guys that come on social media to talk trash. I don't listen to them. When you go to earliest Esan historians, like the foremost Esan historian, C.J. Okoje, he made mention there was a part that she said that Emotan should be the most dignified deity in Esan land, because if there was no Emotan, look at what they said. Understand the clue. According to Dr. Christopher Okoje, in his work Esan Native Laws and Custom, he said there's a particular paragraph. I might not be able to quote it verbatim because I read it quite some time ago, about 2-3 years ago, but that's how he put it. He said Emotan, all right, should be the foremost deity in Esan land. The reason why he said if there was no Emotan, there would not have been Obaewa the first. If there was not Obaewa the first, there would not have been Esan people. Alright, that's exactly how he put it. I'm quoting from the foremost Esan historian, Dr. C.J. Okoje. Everybody knows the story. If there was no Emotan, it would have been almost impossible for Prince Ogun to have become Obaewa the first. And if there was no Obaewa the first, there wouldn't have been Esan. Now the reason is because, now this is the historical perspective from which how the Esan people evolved from Benin, or migrated from Benin. Not just Esan people, Esako or one is almost the same time. Even most other tribes, most tribes in Delta, some of the tribes in Delta, most tribes in River State, it was almost the same time of migration because of what had happened in Benin. Alright, understand this. Now there was a crisis. Everybody knows our story. In case you're not aware of the story, Obaewa had 2 sons. The first 2 sons of Obaewa, Koboyuwa, who is the patriarch of the Edaikenship, who is the first Edaiken of Benin Kingdom, Koboyuwa, and his younger brother Izoduwa. For whatever reasons, they got envious of themselves. They fought and they killed themselves. Alright, the community presided, Izoduwa was a Nogi of Iyowa, had a war with Uselu, presided by the Edaiken, was Koboyuwa, his elder brother, and they all went to war. Both of them went to war, fought themselves, killed themselves, they died the same day. Now, that death was announced to Obaewa. Obaewa the first, the Oba of Benin, got to be aware of that incident, that devastating incident, playfully by one of the palace jesters. Alright, so because of that thing infuriated him. He got very angry that something as grievous as his 2 sons killing themselves the same day was not, that information was not passed to him by his notable chiefs. Alright, the notable chiefs, and instead it was, no, you're always I'm here Daniel Sawari. Everyone is always free to contribute. Alright, contribute. So if it's something that I agree with you, I agree with you. If it's something I disagree with you, I disagree with you. You're free to contribute. Now, eventually, yeah, I was supposed to get an open line today. Someone asked him to bring my office line. The person just messed up, my bio warrior and all that, but hopefully, I'm feeling it by next Sunday, we'll make open line now available. Like I was saying, eventually Obaewa got pissed, so he now put a stringent law for the mourning. He said his 2 children will be mourned for 3 years, and in that 3 years, 3 things, 3 laws will be put. He put 3 laws in place for 3 years. The first is this. Anyway, Okoje called these 3 stringent laws as barbaric and wicked. That's exactly how the historian put it. I know his pains, alright, I know his pains. The 3 laws that Obaewa put was the first one, that nobody in the entire Benin Kingdom, Benin Empire as it was already, will cook for 3 years. So nobody will be seen to cook for 3 years. Imagine you don't cook. Imagine you don't get to eat cooked food for a week, for a month, for a year. Now, 3 years, no cooked food for 3 years. That was the first law. The second law was that nobody in the kingdom, including him, should take his or her bath for 3 years. Alright? Nobody, including him, will take his or her bath for 3 years. 3 years. And the third place was, there will not be sexual intercourse. I think that's the baba of them all. All right, it said there will not be sexual intercourse for 3 years. All right, there will not be sexual intercourse for 3 years. Now, these were the 3 things he put. Nobody in the entire kingdom should cook for 3 years. Nobody is allowed to take his or her bath for 3 years. And the third one is nobody is allowed to engage in sexual intercourse for 3 years. These are the 3 laws, very stringent. So Dr. C.J. Christopher Koje, the foremost Esan historian, called these 3 laws wicked. To an extent, I think they were wicked, actually. To a very large extent. Those laws were too stringent. Alright? So, imagine a nice or more chairman. Then I see now they want me weak people pass now that no sexual intercourse for 3 years. Imagine. No say you and your wife to your day house 3 years. You not they touch her. She not they touch you. You know? So these were the 3 laws that was placed in Benin. So the people, the Benin people had no reason and no other option than to run, to migrate. Alright? So there were so much emigration. A lot of people migrated from Benin. A lot. Not just only the Esans. That's where we're getting it wrong. The Esakos, almost majority of the Esakos, the Onwans and all that, the Ekpeye, the Ogbea, the Ogba people, the Kwere people, the Iwunoha, quite a whole lot of people in that 15th century. If you see, when I've traveled to a lot of these kingdoms, obviously that's a function of my association. We locate all the Benin descendants, and we visited quite a lot of them. Now, if they begin to give you their own aspect of their history, you begin to hear when all of them will be saying 15th century during Obaewa the first. It's not coincidental. It's because it was a law that was placed. There was a mass exodus of immigration. A lot of people left Benin. A lot. Alright? We'll find time to talk about that. Not Ghana, Ga people. What is it called? The Nongwa clowns of the Ga people. We'll have a time to talk about that. But not today, definitely not today, maybe some other class. So a whole lot of people migrated, not just the Esan, the Onwan, the Esak, almost the same time. There were migration even before Obaewa the first, but it was in small batches. Alright? It was in small batches. But the mass emigration happened during Obaewa the first. Alright? So that was how a lot of these places. Now when these people were living, they did not live as Esan people, and that's the point I'm trying to derive. They didn't live. If my ancestors had left Benin, he probably haven't. Like I gave an example, my ancestors had spent quite 150 years in Germany. My ancestors probably had left as Germans. The African Americans never had left as African Americans. Sorry, the Black Americans didn't live as Black Americans. They left as Africans. And that's why Africans is the ancestral home. Alright? So when these people were living, they didn't live as Isako, Owa, Esan, Ekpeye. They left as Benin people. Alright? So series of cultural affiliations with other clans that came in and all that. Changed languages, changed quite other things. But obviously, the cultural semblance is second to none in terms of linguistic, in terms of languages, in terms of closeness of languages. Sans are the most close to the language because they have the closest proximity to us as well. This is about the general historical background, but like I've said, there's another school of thought that said there were already some Asans who had existed. Some people, whether you regard them as Asans, that existed in those areas presently being called Asa land before this mass exodus of Benin people joining them. So if that account by OSB Amowie is correct, it therefore shows that about 80% or 90% of the Esan population today ancestrally Benin, just about 10% that might not have been ancestrally Benin or might have been ancestrally Idu or whatever you want to call it. But Idu himself is a Benin man. Otogbe, Otalaka, Ivaniana Bidu. So it's the language didn't change. Like for example, there could be intonation. These are dialects. That's why the Benin dialect, the Asian dialect, the Edo language is a language. It's the same, basically, possibly the same. So the point I'm trying to raise here is like when I was in the university, then I was not as enlightened as I am right now. I was that was far back 2012. I remembered. I also contest for the post of the president of National Association of Edo State Students in Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. I also contest as the president. Then obviously, when you want to contest now, you have to go and meet your predecessors, or probably your supposedly predecessors. So one of them was Esan. I remember Kingsley Ahigbe. I can't forget him because of what he told me at that time. I was just a young lad who never really understands this whole controversy about Esans, who never really understand that there could be this rivalry. That was the first time I ever heard that rivalry. And if not because I became enlightened, I would have still be stuck on that rivalry till date. I went to tell him to solicit for his favor to support me to become the next NIS president. I remember exactly what he told me. He said, over his dead body will he support any Benin man to become a president in Ife. That's exactly how he put it. Over his dead body. And I was like, I felt ashamed of myself when I was leaving the hostel. I remember we both were living in the same hostel, Fajuri Hall, in Ife. That's exactly how he put it. He said, over his dead body. So I felt very pained, and I had that grudge for a while until I left the university. I started to read more about the Benin history. Now, there are two schools of thought about the rivalry about Benins and Esans. The first is some who engage in this rivalry, they are very ignorant of the history that connects both the Benins and Esans. So sometimes that's why you see being illiterate, being ignorant sometimes can be better than being semi-literate. Alright, because you when you have half knowledge about something, sometimes it's better for you not to have knowledge about anything than to partially have knowledge about something. You end up making a mess out of yourself. So that's exactly what happened at that time. It's not Ishan, it's Esan. The Ishan is anglicized. Alright, so it's anglicized. The exact word is Esan. Ishan is anglicized. Just like when we try to, it's just like in one of our subsequent class, I said Ubini, Ubini is the actual word. Ubini is the actual word. Alright, the anglicized word is the Benin, the Benin. And I have said it countless of times that there is nothing like Bini. It doesn't exist anywhere in Benin. It doesn't have any meaning. So it's wrong for anybody to ascribe us as Bini. Yes, Benin, it's wrong to an extent because it's an anglicized form of the actual word. Alright? Is it anglicized? Yeah, anglicized, yeah. Of the actual word. But however, it is still generally acceptable. But what does not have meaning is Bini. It doesn't have any meaning. Alright? Yeah, Ubini has a meaning. It's just like saying Osasu. They're not saying Sasu. Alright? So that's the point I'm trying. So that's why it's not Ishan, it's Esan. You can call it Ichan, you're not wrong though, but it's know that the actual word is Esan, but the anglicized form is Ishan. So just like I've said, it's a point, and that's why C.J. Okojo was really in the work. That go and read that book. It's so very interesting. Like, I can't really remember the page, but I know it's between the first page 1 to page 10, where he was really pissed with Obayawai the first, because he said if Obayawai the first had not put those stringent if they have not put those stringent laws, if he has not put those stringent laws, they would not have been Esan today. We have all been called Benin. So, and he proudly referred to Benin as his ancestral home. We're talking about foremost Esan historian, but what the modern Esan historians are trying to do is to cause friction amongst brothers. No, not is UBINI. Favor amen. UBINI. UBINI. That's what Benin. Not UB. Funny. Alright. So that's what the modern Esans are trying to do. The modern Esans are trying to do, cause unnecessary rivalry, but that is very wrong. Alright. So, but the old Esan historian understood the connection between the ancestral connection, that the ancestral home of every Esan person is Benin. So, but the Benin should desist from this supremacist talk. Now, if you understand that an Esan person is ancestrally Benin, so there isn't any reason for you to call them your children. I've explained, it pisses anybody off. Sometimes I'm tended to take their side, and sometimes I'm tended to just look back and laugh, because there was for example, there was one article, they still publish it all the time in the Esan Mega Forum and all that. I read that, I don't react, I just laugh. Alright, because I've come to understand some of these things, that it's just better you just laugh it through. Now, those ones who really want to learn will learn. Alright, there's this article that they usually publish about the Uzier people killing Ozolwa, killing Obazolwa and all of that, and we try to correct them that that's not how that story happened, and they are very proud about it, and that they had a hand in one of the death of one of the Oba, and it's something that they should be not be happy about, but that wasn't the real story. Alright, yeah. So it's all about tolerance. It's all about tolerance. It's all about tolerance. Well, I think that's practically where there is a problem. Can't be a senior brother to everybody. In one way, what's your classification? What's your classification for saying that you're a senior brother to them? Esans respect Benins as senior brothers, but we shouldn't be poking it on their faces. Otherwise, you say you are one, then how come you've delegated seniority to yourself? If they recognize that Benin is their ancestral home, and that's so fucking enough. Oh, sorry, I used the word fucking. And that's the best. You can't preach equality and at the same time preach seniority. That's the perspective we must look at it from. The best argument, and which is true, is that they are ancestrally Benin people. So seniority shouldn't even come. Seniority shouldn't even come. I'm not interested in seniority. If I meet an answer person, if I'm in a group of an answer person, and they said, according to what has been left to them by their ancestors, that the breaking of the kola nut. Alright, the breaking of the kola nut. I've talked about Igweben in one of our subsequent class, and they are from Igun, the Eben people. That community was created in about 1560. I talked about it in one of our programs. The perspective is that it is all about when people agree that that's your ancestral home. Sorry, I've corrected that. Now, what I was saying is that if I'm in the midst of an Asian people, the whole kola nut, that when you see a Benima, he must break that kola nut. Amazing. If Esan people decide to accord me being a Benin person, that traditional respect for me to break kola nut does not mean inferiority. It doesn't mean inferiority. It means an ancestral respect that they still see me as the stay homer, just like when we talk about the Oni being someone who stays at home and all that. Oni it does not have any connection with Oduduwa, but he was the one who stayed at home to maintain the Oduduwa throne. So every other Yoruba Oba still look at him as their elder just because he stayed at home. So if Esans accord me that respect because I'm a stay at home, that's because I now stay at their own ancestral home. Don't forget, the point is, we should understand, we should be more practical in our analysis for us to see the whole essence of this thing. If you say that they ancestrally Benin, so they didn't leave Benin as Esans, they left Benin as Benin. It's the idea, they left Benin as so there is no basis for seniority. Now, but if they now decided to give me being Benin, my ancestors could have left. My ancestors, like for example, I talked about my 5 generations back, analyze it. Assuming my great-great-grandfather could have migrated to Esan, and that could have made me an Esan man today, maybe 300 years ago. But I will not take it from any Benin man calling me their children, because I know that I'm as Benin as you are. But where there is a problem is when the Esans start to see themselves separating themselves from their ancestral home as not being Benin ancestrally. That's where there is a problem, and that's where I have problems with a whole lot of them. And sometimes I just ignore and just leave. There will not be any basis for comparison if one understands that this is my ancestral home and the other one understands that these are my people. There will not be any basis if the Esan understand that Benin is their ancestral home, so they are ancestrally Benin, and if the Benin people understand that Esans are their brothers who just walked some few miles away from their ancestral home, there will not be any basis for comparisons. But it now becomes frictions when some now feel that I'm Esan, I'm not Benin. That becomes a problem. Alright? So we should all see ourselves as Benin, even as Esan. It doesn't take anything from you as an Esan person. For crying out loud, you are ancestrally Benin. So when I refer to, when we call Benin, when we call Great Benin, when we call Great Benin Empire, I know a lot of persons have been making a whole lot of mistakes. I'm so tired correcting all of you. There's nothing like Edo Empire or Edo Kingdom. I know, see, it's a matter of words. These words, I don't understand. I don't know whether to open some of our brains to sink it in. Alright? Just, okay, because Benin, Esan, Afema, they are now inside Edo State. So, Esans see themselves as Edo people and not Benin people. That's the correction. Alright? And Afema, some who are not knowledgeable, see themselves as Edo people and not Benin people. And it's high time we actually reinvent this history. I try to let them know that Edo as a word is a Benin word. So if you are an Edo man, it makes you a Benin man, because a lot of, don't we understand how the word Edo came to be? Edo was a Benin servant who was serving Ogefa that helped Prince Ogun they were planning to kill Prince Ogun, who eventually became Obaewa the first. A young man called Edo was the one who helped him. Alright, and because he helped him, the chief, the master of that young man, killed him. And when Prince Ogun became the Oba of Benin, he went to exhume his body and buried him in the front of the palace. There is a small building in the front of the palace. We call that place Awe Ediendo. The Edo we are talking about is that person, and that person was a Benin person who was exhumed, and Awe Ediendo propitiated by Esogban. Esogban is the priest of Awe Ediendo. Now, if you are being given a chieftaincy title, you visit about 13 pilgrimage stations in Benin. The first place you must visit is Awe Ediendo. I don't understand. So the word Edo itself, it was a Benin man, in which, in order for Obaiwa to reward him for the job he did for him, he decided to name the capital, not the empire, the capital of the empire. He named it Edo, which was now retained post-colonially. So that is why I cannot refer to my Oba as Oba of Edo, because it's limiting. That means it's rich, it's Edo state. But when you are say calling Oba of Benin, it's unlimiting. Alright, the Ga people, the Nungwa people traces their ancestry to Benin, their ancestral home. The Ekpeye, the Isoko, the Urobo. A lot of these ethnic tribes, almost 50 of this, and it traces their ancestry to Benin as their ancestral home. So there's something like Edo kingdom is limiting, except I don't know whether you people are having another kingdom. But what we have is Benin kingdom. That is the one that got to Ghana, not Edo. Edo is limited. Edo was a capital. Edo is the capital of the empire, Benin. Alright, so basically, with that 57 points, these are issues. And while you monitor, we shouldn't go that too far and start talking about issues that are frivolities. These are issues of frivolities. Alright, let's continually. I know a whole lot of persons. Some of these people out there on social media, they feel that they are doing everything humanly possible to continue to. The only way now, these are general tactics of Igbo people. They do that a lot. They try to bring disharmony between Esans and Benin, and a whole lot of Esans are falling for it. I don't know why. You start listening to people who will in entirety will never mean you well. In entirety will never mean you well. There's no way an Igbo man will mean any Esan person well. Alright? But a Benin man was okay. Now let me say this. Let me say this so that you understand that there are few misguided Benins and there are few misguided Esans. In how you want to put it, there are always misguided ones. There was a conference I was held in the United States. I can't really remember, but I heard it was in the late 80s. Late 80s. Now the chairman of that occasion was the nationalist, the late Attorney Naharu was the chairman of that occasion. Now there was a renowned professor. I can't seem to remember the name until I make a call to one of my mentors who told me this story some years ago. He said there was a renowned professor who came out. It was an Esan conference in the late 80s. Who came out and was trying to tell the other Esan people that Benin's are trying to marginalize them in Edo State, blah blah blah. Some normal sentiment that you see seen in the mouth of some Esans online and everywhere around you and all that. You also see those sentiments in the mouth of Benin's as well. But this is about Esan. I've been told about Benin also crafting some sentiments as well. But this actually happened in the 1980s. After he said everything, then Enahoro stood up and told him that, yes, Professor, I have heard you, but what you said is entirely wrong, because every single place in Benin land, what you now call Benin land, they are one Esan or the other. He told him about going into OGRA. In case you haven't noticed, if you go to OGRA, there are a whole lot of Esan named streets. There are communities in Benin till now, even more now, that Esans are secretaries, even becoming vice chairman. We don't discriminate. We don't even discriminate against other tribes. So Enahoro was trying to let the man that it is only tolerant people. He said Esans are more established in Benin land than Benin's being established in Esan land. He was trying to tell him that your hatred of these people is unjustified. It's not justified, it's unjustified. So why grieve over what is not even existing, fragment of your imagination, because you think this is it? Yeah. Okay, if your basis, in Bensi, if your basis for your argument, okay, what if I not tell you that Igbos, migrants in Anambra, that the original people in Anambra state were Benin people, that Igbos came because your population was more, the Benins left. So some people just, I don't know how some people think, Jerry. I don't know where that one came from. Alright? But Juliet, I give that up. I've heard you. It's true that a lot of persons say that. A lot of persons say that. Alright? But it's also true that at one point in history could have been blew out of misconceptions. Could have been a folk tale that was allowed to persist for too long, and thereby creating a division. But in all of these, we must change our ways. All right, we must change our ways, and we must understand that however we want to put it, we are more connected than we ever think. If you start to trace some of this ancestry, some of these Esan people, you 6 generations ago, you people were cousins, first cousins. That's how that close we are. Do you know how many Esan? Do you know more, over 40% of Oba's first wife are Esans? And do you know why, Stanley? That is why when I talk about history, you always hear me say that when the crown prince was having an issue, he ran to this place. Always in Esan land. That means these crown princes, their mothers were Esan, and when they had issues in their paternal environment, they had to run to their maternal villages. Alright, so in all of these, I've come to realize one thing. Those who wish to continue to blow our relationship, our brotherhood, our ancestral connection into dustbin for sake of rivalry, we should just clap and ignore them. If any Benin man tells an Esan person something wrong, the Esan person should just clap and ignore them. If an Esan person just say anything wrong to Benin person, the Benin person should just clap, and that's what I've been doing. I don't hold what I just talk when I'm being tagged in some of these posts where I see a lot of Esan people very passionate about saying that no, now without Esans they won't have been Benin. So I was like, yeah, that's beautiful. Without Esans they won't have been Benin. Beautiful. That's the argument. Because Esans themselves are Benin. So that's why without Benin, just like without Benin there is no Benin. So it's an argument. Alright, so when a Benin man says without Benin there won't have been Esan, I also say yes. Without Benin there shouldn't be any Benin. So there are no business of argument. Most times I just laugh through. Most times I just don't comment. I'll just call 1 or 2 persons that my friend, I was like, yeah, I've heard them say that. Can we just move on? In all of this, I have classified this rivalry issue into 2 classifications. Number 1, ignorance, and 2, pride. 2 things. Some don't know the ancestral connection between Benin and Esans. The only thing you just Esans children are ignorance. Alright? Then some know, but for the sake of pride, that I'm an Esan person, no, I'm Benin not rich. The other one's like, I'm a Benin person, Esan not rich. These are two classifications. Pride. If you remove that pride and you remove that ignorance, you will just see that in all history, it's Benin. And we have always said at all times That I know now Esans are trying to say that they have kings. They are no. You can quote me anywhere. There are no kings in Esan land. What they have is Onoji. Onojis are dukes. They are not kings in Esan land. That's because they have a king. That's why they are not kings in Esan land. The Enogi of Ologbo, it's the same with the Onoji of Irwa or Onoji of Uromi. It's the same. They are all dukes. When I mean the position they hold, they are dukes, but dukes are bigger than some dukes are bigger than some dukes. Oh, sorry, some dukedoms are bigger than some dukedoms. So quote me anywhere. They are not kings in Esan land. I know they are trying. Some modern Esans are trying to like, this is a king and all that. That's not true. All right, that's not true. They are not kings in Esan land. What you have, they are dukes. They have dukedom. Onoji, Enogi, they are the same thing. Dukes, dukedom.